It's really energizing to me as our family business leader. My son Adam joined the business not too long ago, about 4 years ago, and he's really made a huge difference. My son Nick introduced, raw food on e-commerce, and he kicked in, and my cousins. It's an incredible family business story.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to the Made in America podcast. Today, I've got Capri Brighenti from Miller Foods. Capri, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is absolutely my pleasure. But it's the Made in America podcast, Capri. So we start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
What do we make? So we make Oma's Pride, which is a premium, natural pet food, raw pet food. So we grind product, freeze it up, and ship it out. So it's very fresh, but it is frozen pet food. So that's what we make in addition to other items. But that is primarily what we make.
The big business is the pet food business, but it's been in business for a really long time, and that's one of the brands of Miller Foods. So we're going to definitely get into the pet food. I know it's the biggest part of the business, and there's a really interesting story about how you got to it, about its linkage to e-commerce, sort of the combination of DTC and still selling through distribution and growth. So a lot of like cool ground to, I think, cover about how to make something old new again and fresh and all that. So that's really cool. But it's not the only thing that Miller Foods does, and it's not even where you guys started. So I think it'd be really interesting to sort of talk about the evolution. So where did Miller Foods start?
I love this part.
Yeah.
This is what we're about. So I was saying that, our farm started in 1950. My grandparents bought a farm in Avon, brought their two daughters, my mom and my aunt, and they were little girls, and they started on a farm. So I used the old, joke, the chicken, the egg, but it really was true because there was a barn on the farm and there were some chickens up there. And there were some eggs. And my grandmother was super industrious. So think about this woman trying to raise these two little girls. My grandfather was driving a school bus. They had no money. I think a beer truck, school bus, ice cream, all kinds of stuff. But she took those eggs and packaged them and literally sold them door to door. So she was the original.
Door to door.
Door to door.
Not a farm stand out on like Route 44.
Door to door.
No, okay.
She's going door to door. She had an egg route.
No way.
And then, so that began, really that was the beginnings and the humble beginnings of the business itself. And then of course there were chickens there, but mainly it was focused on these eggs. But what happened was a farmer down the street had come in and said, "Hey, I've got a few turkeys and I've got some grain. Would you mind taking them? I'm not doing this any longer," basically is the story. And so my grandfather said, sure. So that grew into 20,000 turkeys that we raised.
From one little turkey, couple of turkeys, and some grain, boom.
Absolutely
20,000 turkeys.
Yep. And I was, as a kid,
Probably more turkeys than there were people living in Avon at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see how really creative and innovative they were. So those then began the turkeys, right? So turkeys are really a holiday thing, and they still tend to be, although we hope you eat turkey every day, but they do tend to be more related to the specific holiday of Thanksgiving. And so we sold those to many people, including companies that gave them to their employees. Still what we do today. Same kind of thing. It's very interesting. But one year they had some extra turkeys that they couldn't sell. So my grandmother boned them out and made them boneless turkey roast. And then what does this woman do? She takes them over the mountain. My dad said he drove her. And drove her over the mountain, and she runs into one of the schools. I believe it was University of Hartford at the time. And she goes in and she's like, "Hey, you want to buy a turkey roast?" And that began a whole nother business, which led to a food distribution company through the 80s that distributed all throughout New England. So that's really like the humble beginnings, and then the beginnings of what became really Miller Foods. So it was incorporated in 1972 as a company, and it was run by a family. Before that, it was
just sort of like the farm on the side, not really like...
Not officially. At that time, they were growing the company, but it wasn't incorporated as, our Miller Food C Corp kind of thing. So, and that's what we did. So we were known as a food distribution company. My grandfather passed away and my grandmother passed away suddenly after that. So it was really a time of big decisions and evolution and all the things. And really it changed how they did business and what they did, what they did for business. But that's kind of the beginnings of the story of like who we are. Right. So as a family, we've always worked in the business, husbands, wives, kids, grandparents, the whole thing. So it's always been a great family business and always tried to help the community out as much as we could in many ways throughout the years. So that's the beginning.
Because you guys are really well known for the turkeys and there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on, but it sounds like that was never really the primary business.
Right. So I call it community engagement. So most companies, right? You have what you do day to day, and then you say, this is really what we do because we believe in helping other people. So part of what we've always done was given to people in need and just grassroots. We've, made the fire department, all kinds of different stuff, things like that. So I think that, there's not too many turkey farms around. There's a couple in Connecticut. So in the area, of course, we're going to be known as the turkey farm. Oh, you're on the corner, the white fences, all the white turkeys. Oh, I feel so sad when I drive by, that sort of thing. But it's interesting how we really became known as that. So like Big Y is our largest partner and they distribute our turkeys, our Miller's Poultry Farm turkeys. They've done that for decades, small markets all around Connecticut, but we've always had this great festival at the holidays.
So the turkey part is really, obviously it sounds like it's some of the business, but it's really more about community engagement.
It's community engagement.
Less about kind of how the business becomes a business.
Exactly. So what I like to say is, that's evolved into where we're partners with Connecticut Food Share and we're trying to feed 100,000 people this year. That's like a mission, right? That's what we do on that side of it. But really what we do is manufacture and distribute this amazing natural raw pet food.
So let's talk about that. Well, let's back up to the conversion over to a food distributor. So it starts off with the turkey breast, and then are you just distributing your own products, or like when it's building out in the 80s? Give me the evolution of like farm to food distributor. Like how did you guys start engaging?
I love this part. Yeah. So I always say that we named our pet food after my grandmother, Oma, German. Oma's pride. But I really always felt that I spent a lot of time with my grandfather running and learning how to run our business. And I was really a sidekick, right? So he was a mastermind. He was like a visionary. He doesn't always, in my opinion, ever really get the kind of press or credit or anything because he kind of just did it. And it's become because we're known as Oma's Pride. But I like to really share the story of him and what happened because he, you could have just kept with turkeys, right? That probably would have kept them in business. But he had a vision of being a food distributor. That was pretty amazing because he had watched his cousins who were in the milk business, dairy business. He watched, I remember Joe Vitrano was in like distributing beer, and he watched all of these different people. And I think he wanted to be somewhat like them. And he was brilliant in my mind. I really learned a lot from him. So he said, okay, so we've got these turkeys and we have turkey roast. Oh, if we're going to this school or we're going to this store, we're going to this, let's sell them some butter. Let's sell him some potatoes. Let's sell him some. And I remember the last thing that he wanted to introduce was fresh produce. We're like not a fresh produce company. Like, what is he doing? Because it had we had canned food. We had frozen. I used to hang out in the freezers, like helping him with the stuff. And the last thing he really introduced, I remember was the fresh, produce. So it became a full line distributor. But their largest customer was Stop and Shop. And that was for the frozen food, but it was for the hot deli food. But after he passed away, they lost the contract.
Oh, no, okay.
So they weren't able to do that. So that was a big bulk of what they did and focused their energy on. So they had to reinvent themselves. So here they lost their parents. My mom and aunt were late 30s. Around 40. I mean, tough time to lose both
so when
parents.
Your grandfather passed away, it was like in the mid 80s, 85,
right.
86.
Yep.
And then how long after did your grandmother pass?
1989.
Oh, wow. So
it was rough.
And then that left your mom and aunt in charge of what was left of the business. And how shortly after that did they lose the major customer for the distributor?
Oh, once they rode up there after my grandfather passed away. That was rough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a whole different day and a different story, but that's what happened.
Got it.
So they had to pivot that's the new word, pivot. Well, they were pivoting way back then. So my uncle also worked in the business. My dad had until my parents were no longer together, but he still does a lot of sourcing for us to this day, and he's still involved in our family business. My uncle stayed with the family business, and he's worked with us, and now they're, since retired, but they definitely both, they've both been a big part of it. So my aunt and my mother really had to dig in and figure out. And so I stepped back into the business, which I hadn't been for a bit. And I stepped back in because the transportation company needed to be run. And I was the only one that anyone taught how to do, ironically. So I left the company I was at, stepped in, ran that family business as well.
So what did you do facing the loss of your biggest customer, which sounds like it was a huge percentage of the business? What's the next move, right?
Well, you learn that lesson.
Yeah.
That you never make anybody that big. that you can't have a customer that's the largest part of your business. You have to diversify. So that, I think, was the learning lesson there. So they really put a lot of effort into kind of surviving in that food business, which turned out to be very difficult because my grandfather would have continued to build through technology and all kinds of things, and they weren't really in that kind of a mindset. They had a significant loss, 2 parents right in a row, raising kids at the same time. It's just a difficult time. So I think that what they did was they looked for any opportunity that kind of came their way. But the pet food evolved because my mom's dog was sick. This wasn't like, hey, let's sit down and talk about how we're going to evolve this business or what we're going to do next. What are we going to sell or make? It was, hey, we've been grinding hamburger. We've been cutting turkeys. We've been hand carving turkey roast, all the things that they've always done. And so they own their own farm, right? They own their own business. They own this piece of property that had this great opportunity, but what do they do with it? So I think that they were struggling with like next steps, but as life has it and serendipitous and all that, they had this small store in the front and people were coming in and saying, hey, do you have chicken necks? Do you have turkey necks? Do you have marrow bones? Do you have? So my mother was like, I want to know what they're doing with these things. I don't think it's soup.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a lot of soup.
A lot of soup. A lot of soup's going on here. So they started questioning, kind of like what was going on. At the same time, she noticed her dog, who was very sick with hot spots, and she lived in Otis at the time. So she was watching, as she liked to call it, roadkill. Side of the road, not the term I would personally use, but that's what she used. And so she started studying like wolves and foxes and she started studying like, what do they eat? How are they surviving? Why are they so healthy? Why is their coat healthy? Why is their hair, all of the things, teeth, all of that. And she came up with a raw diet for her dog and the vet was not pleased. And she said, well, this dog is going to be put down soon because you're telling me that you can't help me. So I'm going to try this food. In 30 days, that dog was taking a flyball class.
Really?
So there was...
You're saying she's feeding the dog raw food. We're talking about like from the farm, or where is she getting the raw food? I mean, you literally just mean like meat, bone, whatever, grinded? Like give me the...
Sure. So I love this part.
Yeah.
So meat, bone, vegetable. It's really the primary mix.
Meat, bone, vegetable.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's chicken, turkey, beef, or lamb, which are our primary mixes, right? Those are our signature mixes, what we call them. Recipe has never changed. Been the same from day one. And so it's just meat, bone, and vegetable. So whether it was that we had it in the back because we were selling it, or whether she was... I try to remember that this is decades they also had of experience in the food business.
Right.
It wasn't just somebody coming in and saying, hey, let's make some food. They had a lot of experience. They also had equipment and they also had sourcing. So they had premium sourcing of all of these products regardless. Right. So she just made up the recipes and made it at work and ground them up and fed her dog and, hey, let's try this. At the same time, people were coming in, they recognized that. Like there was a need for this. So they took it to a small market up at Hillstead. And someone came up and said, can I buy this? How do I get it? And it kind of started the whole like commercial side of it. So they named it Oma's Pride. For my grandmother who had passed away, and she was a very prideful person, and they were hard workers, and Oma, was very special to me and also to our family. So I think it was a really nice, like, way to honor her. And
There's just some really, I just think that just want to point out quickly, like there's some really important business lessons that apply across any industry, right? Which is, you talked about the one about watch out for customer concentration.
Totally.
Right? That's a huge
real
issue.
aware of that.
And it's a challenge that a lot of businesses can get into.
Totally.
And so you got to be aware of it. You don't want to wait till the big customer leaves. You got to either keep getting a lot more customers or get hopefully more big customers to average down. So that's a huge lesson. And I've always seen customer concentration, if left unchecked, huge problems. And not all businesses are able to do what you guys did and pivot and survive. Many crash and burn. So kudos to you guys for kind of keeping
I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
I say I'm very grateful to my aunt and my mother. My mother passed away not too long ago, but I'm very grateful to them and my uncle, my dad, and everybody in the family business that's ever participated, because it's perpetuated. Like we're a fourth generation family business. It's amazing to me. We're 73 years in this, that's pretty amazing. I'm always like, wow, that's happening.
That's
and
happening.
We're still doing more things. And I'm excited about the reinvention of what we're doing on our food side and
how you're
expanding our pet food side. So it's like, it's really energizing to me as our family business leader. My son, Adam, joined the business not too long ago, about 4 years ago, and he's really made a huge difference. My son, Nick, introduced, raw food on e-commerce, and he kicked in, and my cousins. It's an incredible family business story, but it's really about, we believe in what we do for manufacturing.
Right.
Like I actually vet all of our sources. I will go hunt down farms. I will go visit you. I'll find you. I'm going to find what you're doing. Right. And I want to make sure that we have the right partners, because that's where it starts, right? If it's really about a premium pet food and it's about nutrition, it's going to have to start with the best possible products on the sourcing side.
Well, yeah, you can't make a great end product with crappy inputs.
Exactly.
So, and I just was going to say the other piece that you touched on earlier, which I think was so important, is listening to your customers and looking at how to fill other needs. And it's just the idea of saying, hey, like here people are coming in and they're buying all these things and we don't understand why. Many people are just like, whatever, like we'll just make that and pay no attention. But then I think it's really the business people that are going to evolve and survive and thrive are the ones that go, be curious, like, well, what are we doing with that, and how can we evolve that market? So super interesting. And so let's kind of circle back to the pet food. Yeah. So you started finding a market. You're going to market, and how did you decide on the positioning? I mean, listen, we talked kind of before the show about kind of Almost Pride being a really top tier product. So that just where that position of the market ended, was that a conscious decision? How do you guys think about that positioning?
I love it that you picked up on that. This is fantastic. So we're going to go, as you say, circle right back. We're going to circle back to what the lesson was. The lesson was you don't go mass distribution then, because then you're back to one customer.
Got it.
So what you do is you give everybody a little piece of the pie, that Auntie Cal likes to say, little piece of the pie. So everybody was a part. At this point, we still only have one customer is no more than 5% of our company. So we stay to that. We stay true to that. So that's what the lesson learned. So what they did was they said, we'll give everyone an opportunity. We'll also protect them, because we dealt with something at the beginning of the business, not the pet food, on the people food side, where we thought we were being the loyal distributor, and all of a sudden it gets yanked, right? Because, right? So what we did was we said we want to give some protections to these, what we called distributors at the time. So if you want to be a bulk co-op in Connecticut, we'll only have like one at one end of the state and one at the other.
What's a co-op?
So a co-op is just a group of people like yourself, dog loving,
yes.
Dog loving people like yourself who say, hey, we're going to get a few people together and we want to get a discount. So it's 250 pounds or more, and it goes up tiers from there for discounts. So that would be like a co-op, a group of people. And then we have what we call distributors, where not only does it go out to yourself and your friends or your family, it goes out to, hey, I might sell a retail store over here. I think I'm going to distribute it out to some friends that I have that are breeders over in, Massachusetts. And then we have a breeder program. So we have breeders throughout the country that use our product, because decades now, a couple of decades now, of dogs that are raised on Almost Pride. So it's really, really incredible. So I think the distribution side has also been an interesting piece and has evolved. But when you start introducing 3 treats on e-commerce, and all of a sudden 3 turn into 10,000, and it keeps going, and then launching raw gave us a whole new distribution model. So now we can go direct to consumer.
Right.
So we went, and that was a bit of a, conversation, I guess you would say, with our customers.
Well, because they were saying you're kind of disintermediating.
Right. So they're like, oh, wait a minute. Why would they get from us? Well, because you're providing a beautiful customer service that we can only get a box to a door.
Right.
That's convenience. If you know our product, you love our product, we'll get it to your doorstep. Always. We do that with our turkeys now.
Right.
You can get a turkey to your doorstep. But most people want an experience, right? So e-commerce is amazing now because it's the nature of how we get food during pandemic. Look what people did. We were perfectly positioned for the pandemic because we had just launched a major technology, which is NetSuite. So we were fully set up for that, which on the tech side.
So you went to NetSuite, which for those that don't know is like an online ERP. Well, it does a lot, but in this case, using it as like an online ERP, it also has an e-commerce connection to it. It's an Oracle cloud software. You implemented that prior to the pandemic?
Right. So we used Oracle NetSuite for our, honestly, for our whole company. It runs our company, right? It does. But we integrated BigCommerce because we use the BigCommerce platform.
Got it.
Integrated BigCommerce, which is our e-commerce site. And that's how we, run our business. So we had that right during the pandemic. We were like, this launched. How exciting was that? It's fantastic. So we just had to make more food. We were shut down, I think, for whatever the Connecticut time was, 2 days, 5 days.
Yeah, very short. Yeah.
But we were a manufacturer of food. Didn't matter if it was pet food, people food, whatever it was. It's still food. So we didn't miss a day. Not a day. Our people did not miss any pay. We really took care of people and we care about them. And that's what we did. So we've been manufacturing for, it's a couple of decades now.
Right.
So it's been fun.
So just go kind of circle back a little bit. So we were going sort of selling to breeders, selling these co-ops. And then some years ago, you guys decided let's go to the next level and thought the way to do that was online. Like talk to me about the decision to add this like online portion of the business.
Wouldn't that be great if it was like, wow, we're so smart. We figured that out. That's not the case at all. I got back to the family business. I was like, this website is needing a little bit of work. Let's relaunch a website. The woman who relaunched the website at the last minute called me and said, hey, I've got this shopping cart for $500. It has to be 10 years ago now.
Got it.
So she's like, I have a shopping cart. I said, well, what's that? And she said, well, you can order stuff and then have it shipped to you. I said, how much? She told me. I said, sure. Add it.
There, see what happens.
She goes, your treats are great and people could get them. So we threw 3 treats on there. My cousin and his wife and, my kids were like, oh, what's this? What's going on with this? So we did that. And then that became another channel of distribution. So it's about 40% of our distribution model now.
It's grown a lot.
It's grown a lot.
And you started just doing animal treats online.
Just treats online. Okay. We launched our on our other side, which is Miller Farms and Miller Poultry Farms, right? That's our brand of turkeys. We launched a site a couple of years ago during COVID. Another cousin came in and really created something called the Thankful Turkey that launched online. So you were able to do that, again, integrated with our system. Very, very interesting how technology has really changed how we do business and how it's helped us tremendously.
Talk a little bit about that. So, let's start. Tell me connect those dots. Where has technology really gotten in the way? into the business, obviously e-commerce, but what else? Yeah. So
it's, so it runs it, right? So it does everything aside from the human side. Right. That's what it does. You can't make our product and it certainly can't make phone calls and talk to our customers, but it can do everything else. And so it takes a lot of the efforts that would go into handwriting things and all that other stuff. But it also allowed for people to work anywhere in the country. I was in Australia and I'm on, and I'm in real time on NetSuite. It's pretty amazing. So you're all over. You're able to have people working remotely. You're also able to manage all of your inventories. You're able to manage all of your, integrate with e-commerce. So you have all that. It's really helped us. I think that was the defining factor for us during COVID, that we were able to launch and do all kinds of different things at a time where it would have been tough. So that's when did you guys pivot to NetSuite, or when did you guys go live with that? I would say it's probably 3 years we're into the pandemic now,
Right.
probably 4 years ago. I mean, it wasn't too much before that. So we were very
timing.
fortunate. And like I said, you had said, did you sit down and say, hey, how else do we distribute pet food? No. Someone said, hey, would you like to add a shopping cart? So we've been very fortunate as well. Like I would say we're very blessed people like that way,
Right.
like it just kind of happened that way.
But a little bit of luck started by putting yourself in the position, because you're the one that said, hey, this website thing really needs a refresh. Like, let's go look at this thing. How can we leverage that? Right. And then your mind was open to that person. Right. So,
I mean, say no.
Well, listen, you could say no. And I always say luck is when skill meets opportunity. You got to be out there looking for the opportunities to find you.
But the big difference is really for distribution of our pet food. And I love talking about the made in America part. So I love talking about like how we make pet food, because I'm super passionate about that. But the distribution side, we just found someone that came across our path. And I said, when you're ready to sell some amazing premium pet food, give me a call back. So I would call him every few months. Hey, how's that product going that you're selling? And he'd be like, yeah, not so good, but I'll call you soon. So he did. So he joined us a bit ago, and my son Adam, and he really, we got a national account for our national pet food distribution, which is in specialty pet. So it's not big chain, it's small chain, and it's also individual people that own stores that really know nutrition, and really it's really premium stores.
Because you're really like going to that boutique, effort, right? It's just a different way of going, because the product is looking to serve a certain niche. So you got to go where the customers
are. Just redesign some product and a whole new manufacturing way of making mini packs. So people have portion packs so that they're able to just, sell their, take their product out, take the pet food out and give it to their dogs. Super easy, dogs and cats. We've learned that we listen. Right. I do talk a lot, but I also like to listen and make sure that I hear what people need and want. Right. So I love that statement.
Yeah.
Seek to understand.
I was just thinking about something. Oh, you saw that on our wall outside.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, one of the things that's easier to do when you're running the farm and you're running a lot of the business through the store in Avon and whatever, is that connection to the customers really close.
Yeah.
When the customers are coming in, you can see what's happening, right? And as the company's gotten much bigger, and now you're going to start being, now with 40% being online, those people are going to be everywhere. Now with a national distributor that you're still ramping up, so now you're a step removed, even from the people that are selling to the end customer, right? So you're selling if you're selling to a store that's not your own, you're still, that person's selling to the end customer. Now with a distributor, you've got you to the distributor to the store to the customer. How do you think about continuing to be able to listen and collect that feedback through all these layers?
So I still have my ways. So I have a really great connection to a lot of customers that I personally talk to on my phone. I just, they reach out to me.
Customers, people that are feeding their pets pet food.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I really try to keep myself very open to calls and conversations and what people want, emails. I really try very, very hard to listen. I think it's just, we also don't just hand off our product. So distribution can go in many ways. You can literally just ship into a warehouse and say, hey, just sell
my stuff.
Sell my stuff. We don't do that. Okay. We actually have boots on the ground.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we do.
Wow.
We do. So we have boots on the ground. We have, we just had 2 new hires just recently who are out in Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, that area, New Jersey. Then we have others, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all New England, all of that, New York. And so we have boots on the ground. So we make sure that we still stay very connected. And just the nature of social media connects you. Social media still connects you. I know it's a hard thing to wrap your head around, but, you do Instagram. I had people were in my kitchen, my marketing team's in my kitchen this morning doing some video and some photography for our pet food. And then we, put that out there. And then there's so many comments and people and people you don't know. And we just really try to connect in every possible way. When people ask me to do things like this, I try to say yes, because it's important to know that you're connecting. Yeah, right. You're out there, you're connecting. It's not just selling product, it's educating. So I look at our particular product. You know what a turkey is, right? That's super easy. We know that it gathers people around a table. You know that it makes for a great Thanksgiving and great holiday and great tradition. But with pet food, you're educating about nutrition. We're using a super premium product. I mean, we use USA only meats and vegetables and all of that as much as we can possibly source. And if we're going to do that, you need to know that it's going to cost more, right? Because it could cost more.
What is the price delta?
Yeah, there's like a differential, right?
Yeah, is it like twice as much as like sort of your run-of-the-mill mass-produced kibble? I have no idea.
Oh, did you say kibble?
I did.
That's okay.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
okay. It's an education.
Yeah, see, this is exactly the point. Yeah.
Right? We're going to educate.
Exactly.
But the differential is really in the health.
Got it.
So even if you take money out of the mix and you take, hey, I'm allocating X amount of my family budget to my new family member who's going to be a family member because they have become family members, dogs and cats, right? And you take that out, it's really about the health and wellness. So then you're talking about how do you really put a price on health and wellness when you're talking about, I want my dog or cat to be part of our family for as long as possible.
Right.
So, but the differential is still there. And then there's all ranges, right, of raw. And I always say, I like to educate on raw feeding because whether you choose our product or not, we believe we have the best premium. Like I said, all hands in. My cousin Michelle, she helps me source. She really handles all of that end of it. And I make sure that we're all plugged in. But I think that in terms of nutrition and all of that, it's more about education.
So let's just, I want to circle back to a couple of things you said before. One is you got the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So what how do those go about doing that education or engaging with customers? Is it really about sort of going store to store and talking to I don't know if it's like vets, I don't know where they go, but what are they doing to help build the brand and educate?
So great. Love this part.
Yeah.
So we have QR codes on our bags as well, on our product as well. You can talk, it talks right about we make it easy technology wise for that. You take your phone, off you go. But the boots on the ground, the people, right, are out there in the pet stores. They're talking to the buyers. They're talking to the people that are coming in, the customers. And we have a loyal following. I mean, most customers have been with us. I would say the customers that began 20 plus years ago are still customers. So we have this grassroots following as well, which is always so interesting. We've never gone mass media, in terms of promotions and that sort of stuff. But it's really getting to those, it's education. So it's going to the buyers, it's going to the store owners, it's going to those people that are actually out there selling the product. So when you walk in with your new dog, you're going to go,
what should I do?
What should I do? And we hope that they guide them in our direction. We have a tripe. We have this new product that we put out. We'd always sold it, but we wanted to source it. We wanted to make it. And that's a unique item. So that's something that's super unique. It's green tripe, unbleached green tripe, stomach of the cow.
Got it.
So it's ground up and it's the best possible thing for your dog. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's nature's way of feeding.
Okay.
So we hope that.
So you got to get that information out there so someone can explain.
Yeah. How do you get that out? So we really try to be as visible and available and open as possible. Yeah. We have Jan who's on the phone every day and she's talking to hundreds of people. The amount of people she's talked to throughout the lifetime it's incredible, but it's constantly sharing this is what we do. And we just talk about what we do. What other people do, they do. But I just know that I can only control the process that we have, which is sourcing and in a clean manufacturing space. I mean, we just invested in some amazing equipment. I just saw some equipment that we had purchased in Australia, incredible, that we have in our building. I also see we try to get as much stuff from the U.S. as possible as well. We always use distributors here. Yeah. So we have some new packaging equipment coming in. We just renovated a space. We just built a massive freezer, 140 pallet spaces, some crazy thing. So it's in motion. I keep saying this is in motion, and we're just rolling what's happening.
I just really hope people are listening and hearing about. There's a lot of underpinnings things here that are stuff that I talk about and try and connect to all the time, which is, first of all, you talked about NetSuite, you've talked about technology, but people are listening. It's new equipment, it's new machinery. It's like, you talked about how do you get close to your customer? You kind of glossed over social media, but like there's not a lot, well, let me say it differently. A lot of companies are not doing what they need to do to get out there and really get this feedback. And for whatever the issues people have with social media, it's an amazing way.
It's a tool.
It's an amazing tool to connect sort of one-on-one with your customers, whether it's, B2B on LinkedIn or whether it's sort of B2C in finding ways to use Instagram to kind of get in there and whatever. Like, you guys
Instagram
have really,
is pretty rocking it right now. I gotta say, I love it.
What's is that another one of those things where it just sort of happened? Do you guys have a social media strategy? Like, how does this, it's just whatever, let's get on there and take some photos. Like you sort of make like it's sort of just happening, but clearly not. You're investing the time. You got your marketing team coming to your house. Like someone's thinking about this, right?
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. I think what happens is when you're just passionate and you're just working and you're just trying to make it all happen, you just think it's just happening because it's happening. And you're like, oh, this is happening. You're right. When you step back and you look at it, it's a fun thing to kind of like take a minute, right? So we're here together. You brought it up and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's actually happening. How cool is that?
You glossed over QR code on your packaging for people can just let you know. But right, I mean, those are little step. Yeah,
it's an effort. Yeah. So if you look at our, if you notice our new logo, right? My son Nick, he redesigned that. That's really a really beautiful reinvention and redesign of what we originally had. The original was totally.
Is this a true likeness? Oh, by the way, for those of you that are listening, like I do,
true likeness.
There's a picture of Oma's Pride, and on it is Oma.
Notice there's the farm in the back, and that's actually our barn.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's real cool. So this is new packaging. This packaging actually was redesigned this past year for our national account. And we had been wanting to do this for a long time, but we did it because this is what the consumer wants. This is what they want. You can see the product. We have single ingredient treats. These are just single ingredients. There's nothing, no one's making anything crazy here. We're talking about just the best possible beef lung and chicken chunk that you can.
So this turkey chunk, this literally just like, I mean, this looks just like someone pulled turkey off a turkey breast and dried it.
It's exactly what it is. It's a freeze-dried turkey breast. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a pretty wild thing. So I say that it seems so obvious to us. It's not quite so obvious, right? And we redesigned how we sell frozen food through our new distributor as well. In these mini packs, in these convenient peel-aways that they're going to have very soon. And it's going to be super cool. And what it takes is generational effort. So I just look at it as, I don't know if there's such a term.
We just make it up.
Making it up.
Let's do it. Let's get that thing in Webster Dictionary.
Generational effort.
Yeah.
So you take something, grandparents bought a farm, 1950. They did all kinds of stuff until they passed away. My mother and my aunt, all kinds of stuff until they passed away. And I don't discount any other family members in here. So please, family members, if you're listening. But it takes generational effort. That's a couple of generations. I stepped in at a time when it was necessary, right? I stepped in a couple of times, different times for different reasons. And this time I'm like, wow, we really have something really special here. This is really, turkey's turkey and our turkey is amazing. And I still believe it's the best. But this is different. This is something we actually make and grind, package it, literally change the lives of pets. It's really different. But when you talk about marketing, technology, and all of that, I mean, you're talking about a whole new level of investment, right? We invest in our people first. We invest in our equipment, we invest in packaging, all those things, but it's still a checklist and a process. And how do you evaluate what's the most important? Prioritize. First, yeah. But Adam, when he joined, Adam came to the business it was 10 years into corporate, came to the business with some additional skills. And he had said that if we're going to do this, Mom, we're really going to do this. Like my career is going to change dramatically. I said, and you're going to make less money and work harder. That's how it's going to work here. But he said, I want to do this. This is different. This is so great that we have this. So again, another generation that said, I'm committed to staying. I'm going to lock in here. I'm going to get this done. So he is why this piece has gone so far. He literally heads up our tech, our, sales and marketing. and our finance, and I make sure that we have the best possible product in. We're making it, we're distributing it. I'm sharing the story out there. I'm making sure that, hey, this is what we do. But that's the reason. It is a generational effort. And the next generation is now up in 17 years, Gio, because he's a 1-year-old.
Right.
And so that's going to be a bit till the next gen, but
But it looks like fourth gen's already making its mark.
Fourth gen is making its mark.
I think that's really, it's just a really great story, Capri.
Oh, thank you for letting me share it.
And it's got so much like booked in there. It was really cool to get to hear it.
Oh, it's so fun. And every time I talk about it, it like just reinvigorates my like, oh, okay. I know this is a lot right now, but it is fascinating. And to be able to share that, yeah, these are some things that we did. These are some lessons we learned, but mostly like to be able to make something in America and to be able to do this and get this out throughout the United States, to me is just, it's quite, it's a gift that we have been given, and it's a legacy that my family's left behind that I want to continue to perpetuate.
That's fantastic. I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to cut us to our rapid fire round of questions before we wrap up. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
There we go. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Both.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Occasionally exotic destination.
Do you have a favorite business book?
A favorite. So, I have a couple of business books, but Traction is a cool book.
You know, Wickman, yeah.
And I think that just the idea, right? Also another one, Progress Over Perfection. Now, that's a book that I just recently picked up for a friend. I opened it up and I'm like, friend's not getting this. I'm keeping it. I'm going to go get another one. I was like, progress over perfection, because you talk about progress, right? There's no such thing as perfection. And if you're going to get stuck in perfection, you're not going to make much progress.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's been a small little quick read, but I like quick reads. I like articles. But I think that if you talk about what's happening, you want to create attraction that holds, right? It's not just something that's a shooting star.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to come and go, and it's going to go into the universe, and that's going to be the end of it. But I think that if you really create like all the foundational things that you need in a business, and you have an amazing product you believe in, you're going to get some real traction. That's going to be grassroots. It's going to be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that's I would recommend that.
Nice. If you had to do something other than be president and CEO of Miller Foods, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, it had to be something else, what would you do with your time?
It's great. When I ask people, when people come in to do interviews that we're hiring, I say, tell me what you really want to do. And then I'll see if we can plug anything in here that works in any of that area, right? Because everybody has things that they'd like to do.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is share more of this. How do people take something and continue to perpetuate it? How do you take a family business? Big part of the UConn Family Business Program. I'm a UConn grad. My son's a UConn grad, my aunt, but we're a big part of that. We do internships with people, hire people. It's trying to continue to build on this foundation of what family business is. If you look at the history of family business and, you know, all the things that go on, very few are surviving. And mostly now they're not being transferred or purchased. They're being either shuttered or somebody big is buying them up, right? That's kind of what's happening. So when you think about Made in America and what's happening, how much is really at these levels that we're doing? We're in a 4th generation family business, right?
Not many.
I don't know how many. So if I could do something after this, and I will continue to share the story. And I had somebody call me on the way in this morning, Capri, I have an issue with a family business situation. That's probably that's what I would want to do. I probably should take a couple of cooking classes because everybody in my family is telling me that my husband's the best cook. So that's okay.
Something like that. You could be a professor of generational effort. Maybe that's your future career.
Professor of generational effort. If I had a dream job, it would be to be a professor at UConn. Oh. That's probably a dream job of mine, something I've had in my mind for a long time. But I just want to continue to be helpful to others and also do things like we do with Connecticut Food Share.
Yeah.
All that great stuff. Like, there's so much to do in the world. Everybody should just get out. I always say, just get out there and do it.
Do something.
Just do it.
What's something, Capri, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
Something I learned, let's see, I've learned a lot. I've learned that there's no shortcuts. I haven't seen a shortcut, and any time I've ever tried to take one has not gone well.
That's right.
So I say that it's the long road, right? It's the effort. And I don't mean effort being 80 hours a week. That's something that I want to make clear, because sometimes when I say that, people go, oh yeah, that's not such a great idea. I don't mean that. I mean, you should be locked in. If you're locked in for 10 hours a week and that's what you're doing, lock yourself in and get it done. Like, you got to get stuff done. I'm like a big, so I pick a word every year. So I'm going to ask you one question, if that's okay.
Sure,
I don't know if people do that, but
you're allowed.
If it's okay.
Throw it out there.
So I pick a word every year to kind of guide me in that year. That's my North Star for the year. So what would a word be that you would choose to guide you for a year?
Delegate.
Delegate. I love that word. I've actually used that word.
Yeah.
And it's so life-changing, if that's your word for right?
Yep.
My word this year was accountable. So I'm accountable to myself. I'm accountable to my family. I'm accountable to my family business. I'm accountable to the planet. I'm accountable.
Right.
And everything I do, I'm like, damn, did I do that right? Oh, I'm accountable. You're accountable. And so every year, last year was grow. So I'm to grow myself.
Grow the business,
Grow the business, grow your knowledge, grow.
It's your theme for the year.
So I pick it as a word that's a theme, and I stick to it. And I think that that's a lesson I also learned early on, that I'm a person that wants to do 1,000 million things, and I try to. But the truth is that you can only do some things very well, and other things will falter. That's right. So you have to if you're going to do something, make it worthwhile. Who you spend your time with in the business. We have a great family business, not just family of ours. We really consider everyone that works with us family. We do. They're our family. We work with them. We talk to them about all their things and all the stuff that goes on in families. And I think that that's another lesson. It's about the people.
Always.
Right. And in this case, I always say it's also about the pets, because we're making the difference in their lives. But genuinely, it's about the people. And that's another lesson I learned. You can chase all kinds of trout, shiny objects, right? You can chase them all over the place, but really lock into something. And I think that you could feel like you made a difference at the end of the day. When we lock into, we say at Thanksgiving, we're going to do this because we're locked into feeding 100,000 people. You got to get locked in.
Yeah.
And you got to geez, now I'm accountable to that. I'm saying it out loud to you. So people kick in and make sure you help me here.
And at the end,
right?
once you've done that and focused on it, you can take a step back and say, I set out to do something, I did it, and you can measure it. And that feeling has got to be the thing that then inspires you to get back and do more. And that little bit of more
of course.
Every time is what gets you where you want to go.
Look what you're doing. Look what you're doing. Made in America. You're doing this podcast. How great is this? Somebody at some point said, hey, I want to do this. And you're doing it. You're actually doing it. We're sitting here and we're doing it. That's right. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, we actually get stuff done. We get a lot done. This has been so much fun.
It has.
I really enjoy learning and hearing about, what kind of questions you want to ask. And I try not to do too much prep for these things, quite honestly, because I like to naturally feel it comes, as a genuine, I'm speaking from the heart.
It did. And it definitely came off like that. And I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story and all you stuff. There's a lot of lessons that got learned here, Capri. And I really appreciate your time.
Superman. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Superman. There we go.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.